Single out salute. I'm Lord Maitreya, the hip hop futurist. You're now tuned into the Super Longevity Institute podcast. Today I have a special guest. He is a computational neurobiologist, pharmacologist, chemist, and a writer who has been interested in the neural basis of psychedelic drug action for many years and is the author of a number of articles and research papers on the powerful psychedelic drug DMT and its effects on the brain and consciousness. He collaborated with DMT pioneer Dr. Rick Strassman, author of DMT, the spirit molecule, to develop a pharmacokinetic model of DMT as the basis of a target control intravenous infusion protocol for extended journeys in DMT space. His current interest focuses on DMT as a tool for gaining access to extra dimensional realities and how this can be understood in terms of neuroscience of information. He is currently based at the Okinawan Institute of Science and Technology in Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, hip hop futurist, transhumanist worldwide, Dr. Andrew Gallimore. Welcome to the Institute. It's a pleasure to have you on. Wow, I have a bunch of questions to ask you. How did you land in? I know you're from England.
That's right. Yeah.
How did you land in Okinawa? What was that?
Well, yeah, I've been here almost 6 years now. I came kind of by accident. I applied for a position at they have a new university in Okinawa. They're trying to bring Okinawa into the 21st century. So it normally lags behind mainland Japan a little bit. So they're building. They build a large university, and it's still growing. So I applied for a position here 6 years ago, and yeah, I've been here since. So beautiful place, can't leave.
Wow. Let me see. There's something in your background playing. I hear it. Is there something in your
Um,
Let me see some.
what can you hear?
Let's see. It's like something playing. All right. No, that's okay. I just
Might be the refrigerator. Sometimes it makes a
I
noise,
heard
but
somebody like talking. That's okay. We'll
oh,
keep
it
on.
could be kids playing outside.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay, that's something we can't control. Okay. Um, what sparked your interest in DMT?
oh goodness. Well, when I was a teenager, as teenagers do, they become interested in kind of strange things. I was always interested in strange things since I was a child.
Yeah,
When
me
I
too.
was very young, I was interested in ghosts and
Yeah.
vampires, and I wanted to be a ghost hunter when I grew up.
Wow.
That was my original dream. But
Mm,
when I realized that perhaps that wasn't going to be a lucrative profession
mm,
as such, when I became a teenager, I became interested in psychedelics and
mm,
DMT. This was in the kind of the mid 90s.
mm.
So this was pre or the very dawn of the internet. So
Yeah.
it wasn't possible to kind of Google Terence Mckenna in
Yeah.
those days, or even DMT. One had to go to the library and look up. So I discovered DMT in a book in my friend's house, I think, and
Wow.
it described it as this experience rather like LSD, but that only lasts for 15 minutes. And I thought, wow,
Mm,
that's kind of fascinating. And so it grew from there. And then as I progressed through college and
wow.
university, and I became more and more fascinated by this molecule until I got the chance to try it myself, basically.
Wow. When did you try it? When was your first
Uh,
experience with it?
it was my first experience with DMT would have been in England. That would have been maybe
Wow.
20 years ago, I guess, first time. And
Mm,
you read a lot about DMT, and people say, oh, it's astonishing. Terence McKenna says it's the most astonishing experience you
yeah.
can have,
Mm,
and you don't really believe it, or you kind of believe it, but it's not, it only becomes apparent how astonishing and how unbelievable the experience is um, after
wow.
you've actually smoked it. It's not something you can anticipate.
Yeah.
You can read and watch YouTube videos um, for hours on end, and
Yeah.
you still will be shocked and
Wow.
astonished by the first experience. And that actually, even after you've taken DMT once, the second time is just as astonishing because you kind of your brain doesn't, in a sense, your brain has a very difficult job at trying to comprehend and integrate it. So you lose a lot of the experience
Wow.
very, very quickly. So even if you've taken it 5 or 10 times, the next time you take it, you'll still be shocked
Wow.
by how incredible it is. Yeah.
Wow, I did read that. I read that. That's a yeah. I read a bunch of people who've experienced it says the same thing. Wow, I'm in
Mm.
for a treat once I get to try it. Then, what did you see the first time that you took DMT?
The first time I didn't. So basically, the DMT experience is normally broken into a number of levels. So you have kind of the initial kind of phase where
Mm.
you're kind of hurtled through this rapidly changing procession of complex imagery. And then
Mm.
if you smoke enough, you break through into what's Terence Mckenna called the veil or the chrysanthemum, which basically you break through into this new world. I didn't reach that stage on my first trip, but I was
Mm.
still, I only reached kind of the complex imagery stage.
Wow.
But still, it completely shocked me how
Wow.
complex and geometrically
Mm.
strange the whole experience was.
Mm.
And I remember actually the first time, I lay, it was late at night and I just smoked it. And I remember just lying on my bed, on my back. And all I could say for like 15 minutes was, oh my fucking God.
Wow.
Um, it was like I was shaking. It was shaking to my very bones.
Wow.
Such was the immensity of the experience. And that wasn't even a breakthrough experience.
Wow. Oh wow. Wow. So you seen geometric patterns. You said the
Mm.
first, yeah. I noticed that when I read it, a lot of people see geometric patterns. What do you think these geometric patterns is an indicator of? Like, why
Yeah.
do people see them?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like so so whenever you experience, so the DMT world is basically is your is constructed by your brain. So your brain has to, for you to experience any world, it has to be constructed by your brain, and that includes the world you experience in normal waking life.
Right.
Um, and there's something about the way that DMT kind of perturbs or stimulates the brain, which seems to cause these very characteristic, highly complex geometric structures to kind of emerge. These very characteristic patterns of activity, which you experience as these
Mm.
extremely complex. I mean, it's not just like hexagons and it's kind of what we would imagine as geometric imagery. It's extremely complex, unimaginably complex
Mm.
geometric imagery
Wow.
that seems higher dimensional, so beyond the normal dimensions of this world, basically.
Wow.
Mm.
Um. Wow. What type did? When did you start seeing entities, and what did they say to you when you seen them?
Yeah, so I mean, there are many types of entities that people experience. Some are quite famous. So the machine elves, for example, Terence Mckenna,
Yeah.
who was the greatest kind of proponent of DMT,
Yeah.
sadly no longer with us, but he used to recount these, gleefully. He used to recount these stories of seeing these very small, kind of mischievous beings that would kind of dance around and jump into his chest.
Wow.
Um, Sing impossible objects into existence and speak in kind of a visual language. It was very strange. Whereas
Wow.
other people, these are kind of reasonably pleasant beings, whereas other people would see reptilian or insectoid kind of beings. They're often quite nasty. I've never
Mm.
experienced vicious or unpleasant entities. The entities that I've
Mm.
experienced have generally been clearly extremely powerful.
Wow.
It's obvious that they are extremely intelligent and they've been around for a long time. It's like they've been around longer than our universe has existed. I think that's pretty obvious
Wow.
when these are not beings that occupy a very low level of reality like we do. They seem to exist in a plane or some kind of dimension of reality that
Wow.
is much, much older than our little universe, and it's completely obvious when you meet them that that's the case. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so
Wow.
many different types of beings, many different characters, many different levels of intelligence and power. It's an extremely diverse kind of
Wow.
hyperdimensional ecology that you're granted access to when you smoke DMT.
Wow. Did they say anything to you?
Um,
Did they
I've never
that you can understand anything that you?
No, not to me. I mean, some
Oh.
people seem to. Many people describe conversations almost with these beings, or at
Wow.
least receiving information. So they often don't speak like we're speaking now, but they will often transmit information. So often it's
Ah.
almost like some kind of telepathic communication.
Definitely.
You
Yeah.
know, they receive information, they receive a message. And for me, and I've seen
Mm.
the mouth of God. I saw the mouth of God once.
Definition.
Where a being kind of showed up.
Wow.
I asked him to. I saw him. He was kind of hooded, and he had a long staff or a long stick, and he was kind of stirring this what looked like it's hard. It sounds weird, but he was stirring reality. He was
Mm.
stirring the structure of reality itself. And I approached him, and he said, he didn't say anything. He kind of turned and looked at me, and I perhaps unadvisedly said, show me what you've got. I want to
Wow.
see it. I want to see it all. And he leant over me and then opened his mouth, and then all I can remember was going, and then I kind of snapped back into this
Wow.
world. I remember, shaking after that and thought, wow, I just seen the mouth of God there, but I can't remember any details other than that I was completely blown away and astonished by it.
Wow. So do you? Oh my. Wow. Um. So when you enter the DMT space, do you?
Mm.
When I read when I listen to some of your talks and I read some of your articles, it almost seems like you feel like this is something that's real. Like it's not just something that it's all in. It's not just in a hallucinogenic. Like you know what
Mm.
I'm trying to say? It's like there's something that's real about this. Um. What? How is this? I guess my question would be, how is this not just a hallucination? Like, how is it not that you're not hallucinating and this is something that is tangible? It's something that's real.
Well, I mean, it's a good question, and it's not one that we can resolve simply, I think. But
Mm.
I mean, so I come to the DMT experience as a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
I'm interested in hallucinations. I'm interested in how our experience of reality is constructed. And as I said, the world that you experience is always constructed
Right.
by your brain from information. So this includes the normal waking world. So when you're in normal waking life, the world that you experience is constructed by your brain.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's a relationship between the world you experience and what's going on outside your brain. There's some kind of mapping. The brain receives information from the environment,
Right.
sensory information through the eyes, through the ears, through touch and the nose, etc.
Mm.
And using that information, it builds kind of a model. So a model of the environment. But the brain never has direct access. You're not experiencing the world directly, so to speak. You're experiencing a model, and that's always the case. And this model, um, your brain evolved to construct over millions of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only model that your brain should know how to construct.
Right.
So this then raises the question: if the normal waking world is the only model that your brain knows how to construct or should know how to construct, how is it possible that when you inhale a lungful of this very simple plant molecule, your brain is suddenly capable of constructing these bizarre hyper-technological alien realities filled with intelligent beings? It doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
Your brain would know how to actually would be, spontaneously start constructing these bizarre alien realities. That doesn't make any sense to me. So
Right.
it's very difficult to simply explain them away as
Yeah, I understand.
hallucinations, in my semi-educated opinion.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. How did the shamans in back in the day? Because it's kind of a mystery that because they wasn't it something that coated the stomach so they can be able to take the DMT when they smoked it? Like it was like a million species of plants, and they picked one plant that was able to allow them to inhale this DMT and make it effective, right?
Yes. So basically, so you're talking about ayahuasca, which is um, a a drink,
Oh, it's a drink.
a ritual. It's a drink. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can, if you can smoke DMT or inhale DMT, and it can go directly into the brain. It's absorbed in the lungs and it goes directly into your blood and into your brain. The
Mm.
problem when you try and ingest it, when you try and eat it or drink it, is, as you say, it's actually broken down very rapidly in the stomach by an enzyme called monoamine oxidase. And so if you take a plant that contains DMT and you make like a tea from it and then drink it, nothing will happen because the DMT is destroyed in the stomach. However, there are other plants that contain completely different chemicals called monoamine oxidase inhibitors. And these actually stop these enzymes in the stomach from working, which means that when you drink when you drink a tea made from both of these plants, one of them that contains the monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which stops the enzyme working, and then one that contains DMT, which is not broken down and can get into the bloodstream. So it is kind of remarkable, as you say, that
Mm.
these Amazonian tribes, 3,000 years ago, could find these particular plants that had to be, when you take either of the plants on their own, nothing happens. Basically, there's no psychoactive effect. When you put them together, then you get this profound psychedelic effect caused by the DMT. So it is a great mystery as to how they discovered this. Now, if you ask them, they would say, well, the plants told us. Um, and I mean, who are we to argue with that? Because
Yeah.
clearly, well, it was pretty effective because they happened to discover this particular plant combination that is effective.
Incredible. Does any of in Okinawan culture is there any tribal people that took DMT in or ayahuasca anything in their history?
No, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
believe so. However, there is a plant that grows readily. There's a lot of it in Okinawa called Acacia confusa,
Mm.
which is pretty much basically, there's two major sources of natural DMT now that people use. One of them is Mimosa hostilis, which is they use the root bark, contains very high levels of quite clean DMT. So most people, when they take DMT, they extract it from this root bark. And Acacia confusa also has high concentrations in its root bark. So these are two very, very good sources of natural DMT. So Okinawa is drenched in DMT. There's DMT everywhere in Okinawa.
Wow.
But most people, the vast majority, I would say 99+% of Okinawans would have no idea that they have such rich DMT resources
Whoa.
available. Mm.
That's crazy. All right. Wow. Um, the brain produces DMT also, right?
Yes, we know it produces at least very small amounts of DMT. I'm not convinced that it's ever released in what you would call psychedelic concentrations. So
Mm.
that's the great. It's kind of, it becomes something of a myth that DMT is released, during dreaming or at the point of death. I think this is all
Mm.
pure speculation. Whereas in reality, it's not really known if the very, very small amounts of DMT in the brain actually have a kind of an important function.
Mm.
So I'm not convinced.
Ah, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Mm. Oh, what did earlier people say about, like what did the Amazon people say? What was their experience when they were under DMT? Is there any written records or any records that you can go back to see what the Amazon people seen? Because I know that once people like Terence McKenna
Mm.
spoke about what he's seen, and then it kind of influences other people on what they seen. So I want to know like what an isolated tribe was seeing that was removed from us, what they were seeing when they took ayahuasca DMT.
Yes, well, I mean, they have records. I mean, generally their records tend to be in the form of paintings and art
Mm,
rather than kind of written down
right,
records.
that
That's
makes
more
sense.
of a Western thing.
Yeah.
But certainly they were seeing entities, they were seeing visions of they for them they were communicating and they are communicating with the gods. They're communicating
Wow.
with and the other. Um, Another reality basically. But it's interesting what you say about the effect of Terence McKenna, and it's assumed, I think, that Terence McKenna has had an influence on the experiences of people who have taken DMT, and that's possible. But actually, I wrote a paper a few years ago where we actually went back and looked at the earliest studies of DMT. So DMT was first isolated and
Mm,
identified as the major psychedelic component of this ayahuasca brew back in 1956,
mm,
and so this is way before Terence McKenna was
right.
speaking. He was a little kid
Yeah.
in those days. So we actually looked at the reports from the published studies, and there aren't that many reports,
Mm,
but it's interesting that even in the 1950s, the late 1950s, when these first studies were being done,
mm,
people were reporting seeing small creatures that danced around. So
wow.
these sound like the elves that we see. That people were talking about godlike creatures, seeing gods, seeing non-human beings that were hurting them or experimenting upon them. So
Whoa.
it's not correct to assume that Terence McKenna is responsible for people's experiences of certain things. This seems to be a primary feature of the DMT experience is
Mm,
encounters with entities and with little beings and other kind of non-human um, entities.
wow.
Mm.
I'm in for a treat when I take this year. Wow. So how? All right. So you work at you're a professor at the Okinawan Science Institute. Um,
Mhm.
so that what made them interested in studies on DMT? Was it there before you got there? Or did you just bring it that?
No,
Did you bring that
yeah,
there?
I mean, I do. So my work is split between. So my kind of 9 to 5 research is
Mm.
on more kind of fundamental. I'm a computational neurobiologist.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
interested. I model very very small parts of the brain to try and understand how it works.
Okay, I understand.
The DMT stuff and the psychedelic stuff, that's kind of an aside. That's my
Oh.
main kind of personal interest.
Mm,
Um, but certainly in Japan, they're not overly keen on
mm,
psychedelic research yet.
right.
I think this will change. I mean, we do have a guy actually in our university who gave LSD to octopus
Whoa.
to see what effect it would have on their behavior.
Interesting.
So there is psychedelic work being done here. Um,
Wow.
just not like it is in the United States,
Right.
and in the UK, where there's now very large research institutes now
Mm,
looking at studying psychedelics. But that will happen. That will expand globally, I think, in the coming years.
yeah, I agree with that. Have you
Mm.
met Alex Gray yet?
I haven't. No.
Oh man.
Yeah. I supported his. He's building. What's it called now?
Oh, the
This huge.
Sacred Mirrors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This huge thing.
It's like a
It's
temple.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Sacred
This huge.
Mirrors Temple. That
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is that place is gonna be amazing. They almost done with that, right? You gotta
Yeah, yeah,
come.
yeah, exactly. I think it's supposed to open this summer. Maybe it
Yeah.
got delayed because of COVID, or last summer even. But anyway, yeah, it's getting pretty close. But I remember I was a
It's gonna be
supporter, so I got
amazing.
a postcard from him with sign saying thank you
Oh
very much.
wow.
So I have that, but I haven't met him yet. But
Oh.
future. Yeah,
You gotta come when that opens up. I'm definitely going. That's one.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
upstate New York, man. It's gonna be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Not too far, oh.
Um, so your book, Alien Information Theory. Can you give us a brief uh, uh, can you just tell us what the book is about and what is the theory, the alien information theory? Can you just break that down for my audience?
Yeah, so it's basically it's my kind of vision of reality, and based upon 20 years of research and interest in DMT. It's kind of I kind of put everything that I've learned together into this book, which basically describes a kind of a vision of our reality, a vision of our origins, the kind of the fundamental structure of our reality, where we came from, where we might be going, and how DMT kind of fits into all of this.
Mm,
DMT, I believe DMT to be a technology, really, a technology for accessing these normally hidden realms. And if you accept that that's a possibility, then it raises questions about how does DMT have this effect? Why does DMT have this effect? What's actually going on in the brain when you take DMT that allows it to begin receiving information from places that exist outside of our universe, basically outside of our kind of plane of reality, our lower dimensional slice of reality.
right.
So the book is all about that, trying to explain how this world that we live in now could have emerged, and why it's possible, where DMT came from, and how DMT might allow us to,
Mm,
on a kind of semi-permanent basis, to actually kind of interface with this other reality and become kind of interdimensional citizens of another world.
wow, psychedelic interface. That's
Mm.
but so have you met Mr. Graham Hancock? I think his name is. We used to sell his books at the bookstore that I used to work with, called East
Yeah,
West Books. He's a very interesting fellow.
yeah, he's a friend of mine, actually. Yeah, we
Wow.
we we read a paper together a few years ago as well on human origins and the alien intervention theory of
Yeah.
human origins. So yeah, I know Graham well. He
Wow.
wrote a review for my book as well, and I've wrote an article for his website last year. So yeah, we're in contact. I met him. I met him
Wow.
at a symposium, private symposium on DMT a few years ago now, and we've been kind of friends ever since. So yeah, I know Graham well.
Wow. I can imagine what type of conversations you guys are having. What does he feel about DMT? Has he taken DMT yet?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He's
He's
quite
taken
public
it?
about it.
Wow.
Oh yeah, many times. Yes, he
I wonder.
describes.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean he's very interested in psychedelics generally. He's very It's very clear to him their significance and their importance in
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
consciousness. He's interested in consciousness. He's interested in the nature of our reality and the
Yeah.
meaning of these experiences and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so he's certainly tried it many times, and he's had positive and negative experiences with
Wow.
DMT, and continues to see it as an important medicine.
Mm. I wonder. So if it's wow, he sees it as a medicine. I wonder what he thinks it can cure. That would be my.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of medicine, but certainly it cures. For one thing, it cures this very limited human-centered assumption that we are
Mm,
somehow this privileged. We are
mm,
the highest beings in all of existence.
mm. Yeah.
And DMT immediately shatters that delusion for sure.
I can see. Yeah.
It makes it absolutely clear that we occupy a very small slice of reality, and that we're certainly not the biggest. We're not the big boss when it comes
Mm.
to intelligent beings in existence, and we're actually quite low down on the ladder, I would say. And
Right.
there are
Right.
some extremely powerful beings, so it cures that. And I
Right.
guess that's quite a destructive delusion to hold, the idea that we have dominion over everything and that we're the most
Mm.
important species. I think that's a very destructive and quite toxic assumption. Uh,
Mm.
so I guess it cures that
Mm.
within 30 seconds of smoking DMT.
Wow, then everybody needs to take it because
I
we have a
agree.
lot of, yeah, we have a lot of that here.
Yeah, and everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have. Mm. Oh, this is important, and this is one that my friend brought to my attention.
Mm.
Um, I read that you will be conducting research where you will inject DMT in patients underneath anesthesia. What's the reason for this? What do you hope to learn from this experiment? And did I read that right?
Almost.
All right.
So we're not doing it under anesthesia. So first
Okay.
of all, it's a so basically the problem with DMT is that it's very short acting. So it you after you smoke DMT, it rises in the brain very very quickly, and then after 2 or 3 minutes, it starts to fall again as it's kind of
Mm.
metabolized and broken down and removed from the brain. And then you come out of the experience. So the experience normally only lasts, the peak of the experience is only, 2, 3, or 4 minutes. It doesn't last very long at all,
Whoa, that's crazy.
which is good,
Yeah.
for most people. But if you really want to explore this space and to establish communication with the intelligences within the space, you need a mechanism of keeping the DMT, bringing the DMT levels in the brain to the desired level, and then maintaining a kind of constant level of DMT in the brain, so that you would bring someone into the DMT space and then hold them there for, it could be half an hour, it could be a day,
Whoa.
or even longer. There's no limit to it, and the technology actually exists to do this, and it comes from anesthesiology. So an anesthesiologist, when he puts you in, renders you unconscious, what he normally does is using a very short-acting drug, and uses a programmable infusion device to deliver the drug into your bloodstream at a very carefully, precisely, mathematically controlled rate. And basically, the idea being to maintain the level of the drug in your brain to keep you asleep, and they can push you deeper, they can
Whoa.
bring you out of the state and basically manipulate. So it's much easier to control than simply injecting someone with a very long acting drug, and then you have to deal with the
Yeah.
rise and fall of the drug in the brain. So what I did is, this occurred to me sort of 2015, that this same technology, what's called target controlled intravenous infusion, you could use this with DMT, because DMT has the kind of the required pharmacological properties that would make it amenable to this kind of technology. So I worked with Rick Strassman. We took his original blood DMT data
Yeah.
from the early 90s, and we used it to build a kind of mathematical model, which we published 2016, which basically just demonstrated that yes, you could probably do this with DMT, and you could, hold someone in the DMT space for long periods of time, and then you can
Whoa.
do experiments in the space. You can, establish communication with the entities in the space, map the space. Even, there's a whole world that's opened up potentially using this kind of technology, I think.
Wow. The people that go into this study is gonna, it's gonna be this study is gonna be groundbreaking. When you think you're gonna be able to do this?
Well, so the model that me and Rick published is kind of a proof of principle. It's
Right.
it's not really ready for work, for actual kind of deployment in humans, but we're working with a group in Sweden who's doing a much more detailed and thorough kind of analysis of the data to produce a much more refined model that would be ready to use in humans. And then the team at Imperial College London, led by Professor David Nutt and Robin Carhart Harris, they're looking to actually use this technology. So it is being done. I mean, it probably won't be done. It won't be done by me here in Japan,
Right.
for sure. But yeah, it's being done by people in the UK.
Wow.
Minimum.
I can't wait
Yeah.
to see what data comes out of this experiment. That's gonna be groundbreaking, man. Oh man. Wow, the things that people are gonna see because they're gonna be in there longer. Who knows what they come back with? what type of
Yeah, yeah,
information they're gonna come back with.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I mean,
Um.
there are other ways that you can extend the experience. I mean, some
Mm,
people like to smoke uh, something called a seed called Peganum hamala, which is a seed that contains this monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So
mm,
some people will smoke these seeds, take a bowl of these seeds,
wow.
um, and then smoke the DMT afterwards, and then you can extend the experience, not as controlled as using this target controlled intravenous infusion technology. But if people want to stay in the space for longer, there are kind of relatively simple ways that you can do that.
How long is it for them when when they use the seeds?
With the
When they
I
smoke
mean,
the
I've never
DMT.
tried it with these seeds, but I'm told that it can last 30 minutes to an hour. So
Oh, that's a long time.
yeah, it's a significant extension. Yeah.
I would. Wow, I wish I could interview some of these people who've taken it. Now I gotta find them. Oh, I need to know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
these. I need to know what the effects is. Um, so is there any side effects when you take DMT? Like any physical? I haven't read anything.
No, it's
Yeah.
remarkably non-toxic, and that's
Wow.
why so it's so amenable to this kind of technology because it is non-toxic. It's very quickly absorbed into the brain. It's very quickly broken down and removed from the body. There's no toxic metabolites. It's one of the safest drugs that you can imagine. It's
Wow.
completely non-toxic. Incredible. Mm.
Wow. Wow. Um. Did you have you? This is a side question. Did you meet any centenarians while you were out there in
In
Okinawa? Have you met any
No,
centenarians?
not that I'm aware of. I
Okay.
probably have, but I mean, there's a lot of very old, very active old people in Okinawa.
Wow.
Um, I mean, in Japan generally, it's a quite an aging society. So
Mm,
the proportion of people over 70 and 80 in Japan is a lot higher than it is elsewhere in the world.
right.
They seem to live forever. Um,
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
nothing especially. Yeah, no one's really sure exactly what it
What's your
is. But
favorite Okinawan dish?
my favorite Okinawan dish. Well, the famous dish here is Okinawa soba, which is kind of it's like a noodles in soup
Yeah.
with slices of pork.
Yeah.
They love pork
They do. Yes.
in Okinawa.
Wow.
An Okinawan meal begins with pork and ends with
Wow.
pork. They say, and a lot of seafood and sea grapes and lots of fish. So
Mm,
it's a great place to eat well
wow.
and eat healthily if one so chooses to. Yeah,
Do they drink jazz? What type of green tea? Is it jasmine tea that they're drinking the most?
yeah, that's what I'm drinking now.
That,
Actually, this is it's
yeah.
called sampincha.
I got my
Uh,
jasmine tea right here.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, stuff, same stuff. Cheers.
Wow. Cheers. Oh man, I really thank you for coming on the show. My mind was blown with this interview. I'm learning more and more, and I'm so happy to be able to share this information with the hip hop community because we needed this information to take us out of some of the stuff that we're already into that I don't think is too good. Um, yeah, that can be destructive. We need to be taking DMT. How would somebody who's interested in taking DMT do they have to go to another country? Because I know it's legal. I spoke to one of my lawyer friends, Paul, and he told me that he took it, but he had to go to the Amazon to take it. So that you will probably have to travel down there to take it to take
No, I
DMT.
mean, it depends what you. So in the Amazon, if you want to take ayahuasca, which is the drink,
Good drink,
so
yes.
if you want to take that in a traditional ritualistic setting, then Amazon, Peru or that kind of region, that's obviously the best place to go. But if you want to smoke the pure DMT, then it's not difficult. Obviously it is illegal,
Right,
and we must of course advise against that.
right.
But if
Don't.
you want to, then Mimosa Hostility root bark is readily available. There are
Right.
many vendors. It's also used as it has the bark. When you soak it in water, it releases a purple dye. So it's
Mm,
actually used to dye clothing as well.
mm,
So it's a perfectly legal.
really?
Absolutely, yeah.
I never
it
knew that.
becomes illegal when you extract the DMT from it and make purified DMT. But it's something that anybody. There are many. If you go on many internet sites that will explain in detail how to make pure DMT from Mimosa hostilis root bark, which would be a crime, but it is not difficult to do should one choose to do it.
Wow, thank you. I think I'm gonna travel to Peru though. I need to be in a ritual. I want to see shamans all over the place. I want to see a shaman. I want to be God. I think I want to
Yeah.
try Peru first. But wow. Do you? How do I? Another thing I wanted to ask you. How do I get in contact with Graham Hancock? Because I want to ask him what. Because he's into. I have a bunch of his books like, what was it? Fingerprints of the Gods. I had a bunch of his books. Because I want to ask him what he's seen and how this relates to some of his research as far as ancient cultures is concerned. How, can you do me a favor and try to get in contact with him and let him see the show that we did? Because he's hard to get in contact with.
It is hard to
I
get in
know I'm
contact.
putting you on the spot, and that's your friend, and I'm sorry for doing that. But I think that if I need this, I need people like him to come on the show because, and like you like yourself, because I want to introduce the hip hop community. I want to get us to a different way of thinking. I want to have healthy dialogue like this, and I want to get them into science and just different stuff. I just want to open up their mind to different ideas, not just the stuff that we see on TV and the criminalization of the culture and stuff like that. I don't need to. I don't want to go and be preachy, but yeah, you. So if you just send him the video, if you can just send him this video and say, look, this
I
young
can
man
do
in the
that.
hip
Yeah,
hop
I can send
community.
him this video, and
If he
then I
says no,
can't
he
promise
says no.
people.
No, if he says no, it's all right. It doesn't, if he says no, I don't. It doesn't bother you. At least I tried to
Yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't. I'm not. It's not personal. I know he has a lot of time. He's doing. But if you could just let him see this video, and or maybe if I send you Rick Strassman and say, look, the hip hop community would like to speak to him. Betrayer
Okay.
one from the hip hop community would like to speak to him. Is there any advice you got for any of the my audience in the hip hop community who who may be interested in any discussion that we had today on DMT? I know I'm gonna put the link in the description so they can find your book on Amazon. I'm gonna put a link in the description of all of your website. But any other books and anything else you can suggest to the hip hop community who may be interested in DMT?
Well, I think everybody should be interested in DMT. I think it's the most important, in my opinion, it's the most important molecule, or
Wow.
one of the most important molecules on the planet. And anyone who's interested in their own, the potential of their own mind, the potential of their own consciousness, the potential of their own brain, anyone who wants to see through the veil, to see the kind of the true structure of reality almost, and to realize that this rather simple little world that we live in is actually one amongst countless other worlds that we have access to. And if everybody, I think, not just the hip hop community, but certainly everybody should be interested in that.
Right.
But also, psychedelics generally, I think, for creativity and inspiration. If you want to, if you're an artist or a musician and you're making new things, whether it's new music or new art, psychedelics are a great way to kind of lubricate the creative wheels of your
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's certainly better than cocaine or whatever.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. It's a far better drug. It's not addicting. It won't destroy your life. Thank you for saying that, Dr. Gilmore. Um, wow. One more question. Did you ever meet Terence Mckenna before he passed away? The late great the late great
Oh,
Terence McKenna.
sadly not.
Oh
He died in 2000, so I was like just turning 20. I was still at
oh.
university when I heard that Terence McKenna had died of a brain tumor. So no, I've met his brother. So I had dinner with his brother, and we spoke at the same symposium that I met
Wow.
Graham Hancock at. So that's as close as I've got to Terence, was through his sibling, through his brother. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, obviously, he's the most he's the largest figure,
Mm.
the greatest figure
Yeah,
within
definitely.
DMT community, certainly.
Mm.
And he still provides massive inspiration. Every time I listen to him, I get new ideas. I get a new perspective on how to look at DMT or how to look at consciousness and reality. So he's immensely important in my work. And at
Yeah.
the beginning of my book, actually, uh, I mean, the book actually was inspired by a Terence McKenna
Mm.
quote, which was the most important thing to understand is that we are trapped inside some kind of work of art.
Yeah.
The
I see.
idea that we are embedded within some constructed reality. I kind of love
Wow.
that idea, and that's really where the book, the seed, if you like, of the book came from. So yeah, I owe a lot to him, and he continues to provide inspiration for me.
Do you think you're gonna throw a symposium yourself anytime? Maybe on the island, Okinawa Island, maybe one day.
That would be cool, yeah, to have a psychedelic symposium in Okinawa. I
Yeah.
think the problem is Okinawa. It's quite an isolated place, so
Mm.
it's not like doing it in New York or in
Right.
DC or something. It's like you have to people have to most people anyway, apart from the few people who happen to be in Japan, would have to travel from long distances. So I imagine it would be very expensive
That's true.
to do it in person. I mean, online symposia are obviously becoming more and more popular now, but
Mm.
for me, there's nothing compares to being in the same room and actually interacting
Yeah.
with people. That's the
Definitely.
way it should be. We shouldn't make
Yeah.
online symposia shouldn't become the norm.
No, I
They,
agree.
as soon as we can get out, stop doing those, and get back to reality, so to
Mm.
speak,
Wow.
the better. I think.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you doing this, taking out your time and your busy schedule to come and talk to us at the institute. I definitely would like to have you back on. I'm gonna read your book. I'm gonna get it and read it, and I'll have more questions for you after I read it. I want to thank
Sure.
you for all your brilliant work. It's inspired me. I've seen some of your videos, and hopefully I'll have you back, man. Peace to all the Okinawans out there too.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Um,
All right.
I'm Lord Maitreya. He's Dr. Andrew Gallimore, and we out.